Hello everybody, I'm Pastor Bob Reeve and I'm so excited and proud of you for joining the Momentum Fitness Challenge Life Group Expressions. Man, what a great season in the life of our church. Momentum is focused intensity over time multiplied by God. If you will put some effort to it over a long enough period of time and then trust God to meet you and to multiply your effort, you're going to see breakthrough in your life. And in particular, we're emphasizing now in this season our personal fitness. I've said it in church a couple times. Some of you will remember this, but man, we've kind of been in your business already talking about finances and trying to get ourselves healthy financially. And now we're stepping into our fitness. And so it's with a little bit of fear and trepidation that we do this. However, the staff is already setting the pace on this. We're doing it ourselves. You guys have heard about Pastor Chris. You've heard the staff set their goals and make their plans and state those out to you. So we're doing it as well too, because this staff, this leadership team is committed to the long haul, and we want to be healthy and ready to serve the Lord and not impeded in any way. So that's our goal. We're trying to get fit and get healthy, and we're using focused intensity over time and asking God to help us as we press in on this. So we appreciate your prayers, and we're praying for you as well too. Personally, I'm so glad you're into life groups. It's kind of fun to have our life groups reassembled back together like they had been previously. And for those of you that are joined into the new groups, we're so glad that you're part of it. I think you're going to find this truly life-changing. Church is probably best expressed in a life group situation and in a life group function, because it's here where you can take time to listen to one another, learn from one another, take time to pray for each other, and really develop community. So I'm so glad that you're a part of one of our life groups, and I pray that as we're emphasizing fitness during this season, I pray that you're going to be healthier in your body, and that 10, 12 weeks from now, that you're going to be so glad that you took some time and with some friends chose to work together in developing your own health and extending that. By the way, if I forget to say it at any other session, let me say this up front. One of the things that will help your fitness goals become real, to actually achieve them, is by you choosing to have a fitness partner, somebody that you can encourage. I would use the word accountability, but people get nervous about that sometimes. So let's just call it a friend, somebody that is there that will encourage you on whatever goals that you might have. Some of us have really ambitious fitness goals. Pastor Chris has very ambitious goals. He wants to win the challenge. I know that Sherry and I have different goals for ourselves. And but we're going to be encouraging each other, and I want to encourage you to get a partner that will encourage you. I don't think you can do it on your own, or you would have already probably done that. But with a friend and a partner, and with the life group team that you have, I think that you're going to find real success. And talking about partnership, it reminds me of Daniel and his buddies when they were in exile and when they were going to be challenged as to what their beliefs are, and how they supported one another in a tremendous internal victory. So I want to revisit this, and we're going to be reading from Daniel chapter 1 here today. By the way, we'll probably say this many times, and your life group leaders will probably remind you, but a lot of our material from this comes from Rick Warren's church, Saddleback Church, and their development called the Daniel Plan, danielplan.com, and you can find incredible resources on there. But let's visit what Daniel himself went through. A lot of things, but let's just visit with Daniel chapter 1. If you want to pick this up with me, look with me at verse 5. Daniel chapter 1, verse 5. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacies and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so at the end of that time they might serve before the king. Now they're in Babylon. They're serving under King Nebuchadnezzar. He's not a follower of God. He's not somebody who's following Jehovah God, but nonetheless, they're in this land, and they're doing as the Bible says. They're trying to be good citizens of the land. But man, when cultures come into conflict, at some point in time, you have to trust God to give you a fresh answer. So the king has chosen these young men, of which Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, or Abednego, however you want to say it, I think is fine. He had chosen them as part of these group of guys, and he's going to give them his food. Well, what kind of food is that? Well, it's all the delicious food of the land. It really is. It's the fried chicken, it's the enchiladas, it's the beans, it's all the delicious food that you can eat. Well, some of this food was not acceptable to the young Hebrews' diet. So even though he was offering them his very best, it didn't mean that it was healthy or right for them to eat. So it creates a conflict for Daniel. Let me follow this, pick it up in verse 6. Now, from those of the sons of Judah were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. To them the chief of the eunuchs gave names. He gave Daniel the name Belteshazzar, to Hananiah, Shadrach, to Mishael, Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. I'm in verse 8. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. Now there's some incredible and important principles in there that we're not going to visit all of them. One of the things I do want you to notice, by the way, is that while they're in a pagan culture, Daniel wasn't looking to make enemies. And he appealed to the appropriate authorities about something that was significant for him. And this had to do with how the right kind of foods were important to Daniel and to his friends from the tribe of Judah that are in exile in Babylon. So the way he did things was more than appropriate. But what he did was important as well too. In other words, he knew that something that the culture didn't understand, that the people in Babylon didn't understand, is that the foods that God had chosen for him to eat would help them to be healthier than these delicacies that the king wanted to offer them. Fact of the matter is, what we eat, how we live, what we do, how we think, all these things are important to our health. And so Daniel appeals to the appropriate authorities with this sort of appeal. So let's pick it up in verse 11. So Daniel said to the steward whom the chief of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Of course, they were given new names, which we've referred to. I'm not trying to confuse you, just reading the word here. Verse 12, here's what Daniel said. Please test your servants for 10 days and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Not the beautiful, fantastic wines that would have been offered or the incredible rich foods that would have been presented on a table fit for a king. He says, let us eat vegetables and drink water. Verse 13, then let our appearance be examined before you, and the appearance of the young men who eat the portion of the king's delicacies, and as you see fit, so deal with your servants. And verse 14, so he, meaning the authority, consented with them in this matter and tested them 10 days. Now listen to the result, verse 15 of Daniel 1. And at the end of 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who ate the portion of the king's delicacy. Daniel was committed to the Lord, and he was committed body, soul, and spirit. 1 Thessalonians 5:23 says that we are body, soul, and spirit. Daniel was committed to the Lord, body, soul, and spirit. And he knew the ways of God were better than the ways of man. And so appealing to the authorities, he said, he said, look, let us eat the right kind of foods. We're not saying that the food that you're offering isn't good and beautiful and generous. It is. But we want to eat these kind of foods because these are the ones that we believe will help us to be able to serve the King better, the right kind of food. Vegetables and water. I don't know what you would pick, but man, I would have been awfully tempted to say, yeah, let me at that King's table. Let me at that red velvet cake. Let me at that roast beef. You know, I would have been tempted to do all those things. But Daniel said, look, you know, if you really want us to serve the King, we think the right ways to eat are going to make a difference. Well, the same thing is true in our lives as well. When we start to eat the right things, when we start to live the right way, when we start to get our body in balance the way that the Lord wants us to live, guess what? We too are going to be healthier. So I already mentioned to you, by the way, that the whole staff and a lot of the church has bought into this opportunity and challenge that we have. But let me offer to you once again, let's embrace the challenge over the next, several weeks together of living in a different way, eating the right kind of foods, getting the right kind of exercise. And at the end of it, when we get to the end of this process, I'll bet you that we're going to feel better. I'll bet you we're going to look better. We're going to have more energy. We're not going to be as sluggish. We're going to be thinking better. We're going to be so excited about what the Lord has done. And so we want to give all of ourselves to the Lord. You know, we visited a couple times in this process one of the New Testament passages that talks about our body. Let me remind you again about 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 and 20. It reads this way, or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own. You are not your own. You're not your own. You're God's. For you were bought at a price, therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which is God's. Let me say something to you briefly about this idea of your body being the temple of God and visit something with you. There is only really one temple. There was only one temple in Jerusalem. That is the place, that is the house of God, the temple of God. And people would make pilgrimages to get to the temple where God was. Now, the temple of God wasn't a place where they held church, wasn't a place where everybody got together and sang songs and worship like we do in our church facility here. The temple literally was the house of God. God dwelt there, and you would approach His house to have an experience with Him. And the temple of God was so special that there were all kinds of ways and regulations about how to approach the house of God and what is the right way to do it, so that nothing of defilement, and listen to me now, that nothing of defilement would enter into the house of God, because you wouldn't want that to happen. You wouldn't want to bring defiled, broken, sinful, wicked things into the house of God. That wouldn't be the way it would be. Now, the Bible says here in 1 Corinthians, Paul says that your body's the temple of God. Now, what does he mean by that? Well, he's not talking so much about health. He is talking about the fact that God lives in us. This is what happened on the day of Pentecost when the Spirit came. That's why Jesus was so happy to actually be ascending into heaven, because he knew that the great transformation was about to come, that God was going to come and live inside of us. No longer does he live in a temple in Jerusalem. He now lives inside of me. He lives inside of you through the power of the Holy Spirit. And because of that, we need to take care of our temples. We need to take care of this earth house, this earthly tent, 1 Corinthians 15 calls us, this vessel. We need to take care of it. We need to treat it right, because it is given to the service of the King. Now look, I've made more than my fair share of mistakes, and I know you have too. But that doesn't mean that just because we've made mistakes in the past that we have to let it stay that way, or we're just going to resign ourselves to failure. That would be worthless. That doesn't motivate me at all. Quite the opposite of that. We're going to press on. I'm excited about committing more of myself to the Lord, getting in better shape, being able to walk and serve Him in a way that has less restriction than I could have ever imagined. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 21 says this. 10 verse 31. Therefore, whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Everything we do should be to God's glory. So how we live, our personal health, should be submitted and committed to God. So as you're in your life groups, you're about to go into your first of 5 discussions over 5 sessions over the weeks about different aspects of being healthy and getting fit. And I just want to encourage you at this very first session, let me give you some simple suggestions. Number 1, get a fitness partner, get a friend, get somebody that's going to encourage you. But even before you do that, you need to set a goal for yourself. We're going to bring this to a conclusion on the last Sunday of July. I think it's July 29th. We're going to bring it to a conclusion. We're going to be celebrating some of the great victories that have been won. There's going to be a winner in our Biggest Loser Challenge. We're going to have some fun with that. And man, we're going to be in better shape. We're going to be healthier. Some of you are going to actually be off medications you've been taking for a long time because you won't need them. The doctor is going to validate that you don't need them because you're healthier. We're going to be celebrating that. But if everybody else has success and you don't, what good is that? So set a goal for yourself. Set a reasonable, realistic, but somewhat challenging goal. I've set a goal for myself to get back to a weight that I haven't seen for a long time. Just in this next season of time, it's going to require that I do some things differently. So I'm excited about that. I'm committed to doing it, and I appreciate your prayers. So the first thing we need you to do is focus on a goal. What could that be? Well, maybe your goal would be just starting to walk. Maybe you start with 5 minutes a day, and your goal is by the end of the time to get to 30 minutes a day. Can you imagine how much better you'd feel if you got to 30 minutes a day? It might be walking. It might be just to change some eating. Maybe you realize that there's some food that's not good for you that you're completely addicted to. What about laying that down and creating some separation from that for yourself for 30 days? Maybe, this would be a good one, maybe you have not been to a doctor for just a physical health checkup. If you would just do that, who knows, maybe something wonderful would happen in your life. Maybe you'll find out that you're in better shape than you could have ever imagined. That would be a good goal. I'd be proud of you if you just went to the doctor and got a checkup, especially if you haven't been doing it on a regular basis. That is one of my goals. I go to a doctor, but I just need to go and get a regular checkup. That'd be a good thing for me to do. So the first thing is you're going to focus in on a goal. Turn to the people in your group, whether it's just one of you, one other person, or 20 of you. Turn to somebody in your group and say, focus on a goal. Just say it real quick. Focus on a goal. Thank you so much. Second thing, stay involved in a life group. These are 5 simple sessions. Stay connected and involved in a life group, and you're going to get a partner there. And then the third thing is we want you to take action towards your goal tonight. State it, commit to it, write it on a 3x5 card, keep it in front of you. If it's to lose 5 pounds, or if it's to start an exercise program or get to a doctor, take action on your goal. Well, I'm so proud of you guys and so excited that you're a part of the life group, and I know that you're going to have a great time. And so anyways, that's pretty much
987, 988,
John.
989, almost 1,000. What
are you doing down there?
Just doing some push-ups on the platform of the stage.
Push-ups?
I'm earning points for my life group.
Oh, points, that's right.
Edition challenge.
So step in here and tell them how you get. Do you get points for doing push-ups?
I hope so, because I just did like
tell
900.
Tell them about this great fun point challenge thing.
Well, part of the fun aspect of Momentum Fitness Challenge is that we are doing a life group edition, And it's going to involve a competition amongst all of our life groups that we've created, just as a fun element and a way to encourage all of us to get active and to get physically fit. So we've created a list of points, and the winning life group will get an amazing prize. So there's ways to earn points individually just on your own, and then there's also ways to earn points as a group with your entire life group together. Now the thing is, if you do a life group challenge or a life group activity, you have to have at least 2/3 of your life group involved. So it can't just be you and your dog to get points for that. To get group points, you need at least 2/3 of your life group that are involved. We actually have a list of the challenges and all the points that are listed on a page like this, which you'll see or your host will have. One thing that's not listed on here is that our golf tournament on Monday, June 11th, if you participate, every person in your life group who participates will get 100 points for your life group, which is pretty substantial. So you'll want to be involved in our golf tournament on Monday, June 11th. The way that you need to get points, by the way, is you need to either email those, you need to take a picture and you need to email that to Christina Brusby, or you need to post it on the Causes Facebook. So you got to make sure that you do that in order for a life group challenge to count. And then the last thing is that your host will track the points, and we'll do that on the honor system. And those points need to be turned in on Saturday, July 28th. The last thing that I want to mention is that one of the things that we're doing is we are offering free Saturday workshops starting at the end of May going through July. And there's two types of workshops. The first kind are exercise or active workshops. And we have 6 that you can choose from. We have Zumba, we have prayer walking, we have hiking, we have Pilates, we have MMA, which I'm sure Pastor Chris will be a part of. And then we also have jazz, lyrical, or dancing. And then the second kind that we have is our educational or informative classes, and there's 3 that you can choose from. The first one is on juicing. Pastor Dave will be teaching that. The second is on having a healthy family, and Dr. Richard Adams from our church will be teaching that. And then the third is on physical wholeness and wellness. So we'll give that information to your host, and they can explain that to you. But we really want to encourage you, get involved on the Saturday workshops. And this is going to be an incredible session, incredible quarter of life group, and we're all going to get fit, look good, be a lot healthier than we were at the start of this. So thanks so much. Have a great rest of your life group tonight.